The Antidote.
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 Y estás escuchando The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
You're listening to The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
With Christian music that doesn't suck.
Thanks for tuning in The Antidote with Dave Hawkins. Our opening song, My Divine, comes from one of Canada's best Christian and somewhat hidden music talents, The Contact. They're also one of the most played artists in my music library, and for pretty good reason, because in 2007, The Contact released one of the best albums I've ever heard, Canvas Tears. You know, it was odd that following the release of Canvas Tears, the band virtually disappeared. But now The Contact has returned and have a great new single, Vanity Ball. I loved having the chance to speak with the band's vocalist, Geoff Fifield, who comes to share about The Contact's past music, what plans they have for the future, and whether living on Canada's East Coast has an influence on their music. Up from their first full-length, Paralyzed from the Soul Up, comes the song Until the End of Time.
There's a clock chasing after me. It wants the life I breathe until the end of time. The end of time. my last goodbye, my last goodbye. I'll breathe, I'll fight, I'll love to show you life. I'll show you life. These are the years that pass me by. These are the years that pass me by. They pass me by. They pass me by. They pass me by. They pass me by. These are the years that pass me by.
Geoff Fifield is frontman of The Contact, and he's here with The Antidote. Good to have you join in, Geoff.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously, you're the most important band member because you're the one that's here for this interview. But maybe you can fill us in about who else is involved and how The Contact came to be.
Oh, wow. Currently, there's 3 other guys involved. My brother, who's on bass, Tim Fifield. On keyboard, we have Jordan Allen. And on drums, who's our most recent addition, is Chris Jilks.
You've kept a lot of the original lineup intact. Well, obviously with you and your brother.
Yeah. It started way back in the day with a few different guys, which we stay in touch with. But the original band members, who's remaining, is myself, my brother Tim, and Jordan Allen. So it's been, like a lot of bands, I think it's been a kind of an evolution of band members to a certain extent. But currently we're a 4-piece, and that's kind of the makeup.
Well, I want to go way back into the past here.
Sure.
The Contact did their first EP back in, what was it, 2003?
That sounds vaguely familiar, yeah.
Okay, then I'm probably going to ask a question that you can't even recall now. A lot of bands are embarrassed by their first release. Are
Right.
you still okay with what you put out back then?
You have to remind me of those songs. I think, some of the things that we did there, I would say most of the material on that EP, if I can remember some of them, I think it was a good first kind of go. It was us partly learning how to record, partly learning how to songwrite, me learning how to songwrite. Even back then, 13, 14 years ago when we were writing those songs, I think we were still trying to write material that was still kind of in the same theme as what we still write, where it's getting people to think. It goes maybe a little bit deeper. There's a lot of metaphor in our songs. So even back then, we had a lot of that. So there is some congruency there, but at the same time, we were still definitely learning, like most bands in their preliminary recordings. So, yeah.
Well, why don't we just bring it then 2 years closer to today's date? Because
Sure.
The Contact brought out your first full-length, Paralyzed from the Soul Up, in
Yeah.
2005. That one I have a copy of, but your first EP, I couldn't find any trace of that.
Yeah, it's a rare thing.
Did you guys self-release that album, Paralyzed from the Soul Up?
Yep. Yeah, that was all self-released. We recorded that locally. My brother was working at a company at that time that actually had a studio in the building, and we had access to that, and were able to use that and some of the gear that was there. And Jordan Allen, who's the keyboarder in the band, he's also a graphic designer, so he was able to do a lot of the graphic work as well on that. And so yeah, it was all kind of self-released and put forth for the public.
Mysterious fear. I stand at the edge and I wait for your move. It doesn't matter if you push or pull. A beautiful fall, a beautiful dive. Clip my fear so I can fly high. I surrender for the sake of love.
Paralyzed, one of the songs found on the Contact album, Paralyzed from the Soul Up. I was wondering how you were able to manage to put that out, because obviously that's the days before crowdfunding. So that's how you're able to just do it, because it was homegrown.
Yeah, it was homegrown, and I think we would have played some shows to help raise money. And one of the band members at the time was very much a businessman, and still is, and very smart at putting together money and funds to do that. But part of it was for sure connections and kind of cutting some corners in some of those costs as well. But yeah, because it was self-produced, we didn't have to pay a producer or things like that. So it was able to keep some of the costs down.
And the quality's perfect.
Well, that's, I guess, subjective, but we again, it's another step forward for the band after the first EP of trying to learn some things from that first attempt, and to do some things a little bit differently. And maybe we're a little bit on less of a time crunch, which is good and bad for any band that is listening who knows all about that. That sometimes when you have no time constraints in studios, or less time constraints in a studio, that you spend a lot of time and maybe don't make a lot of headway sometimes. So, yeah.
Just dance with the world in a dark alleyway, in a red silk dress, flash the cost of my soul. I fell prey to the one I thought I could control, and I feel so used. Still I know I can't blame you. Can you help me out tonight? Your love
In 2007 came around, and the Contacts signed with Seven Spin Records for the release of Canvas Tears. That label had a notorious reputation. So what was your experience like?
Well, we had a kind of a connection to the label. One of our friends was a brother of one of the guys who was running it, or part co-owner of the label, and so we just kind of made that connection, and were able to kind of move things forward. And at that point, we wanted to try to see if we could be further exposed to the U.S. market. So we thought that was maybe a good attempt with partnering with a label that was down there already. And a couple of the other artists on that label, we kind of respected what they were doing and their sound, and so we thought that might be a good fit for us. And so that's kind of how that came about.
So you didn't have any issues with the label then? It worked out for you?
No, you know what? I mean, maybe I'm out of the loop. We've been pretty separated from any of the issues that have happened with the label, but we didn't have any direct issues to speak of with the label and our own personal experience.
You spoke about being drawn into the U.S. market. I know that most Canadian artists that I speak with say that doing a band tour in Canada is a pain, what with long drives between cities. So back in the Canvas Tears days, did the Contact have many Canadian dates, or did the band head into the States?
We did have some in Canada, but we really tried to put our focus on the States, and so we did a pretty would have been extensive tour for us of like 40 dates within 8 weeks or something like that. Or it was pretty much like a gig every day when we were in the States, and because of just the layout of the land down there's such a high population density between pretty small drives. So and we kind of partnered up with a few other bands that were on the label and did kind of a multi-band thing. That was really the emphasis back then that we did, and then after that tour, we had a band member leave, so then we were a little bit on hiatus after that.
I have a lot of favorites from the Contact's Canvas Tears album, including this one, If I Fall.
Just to hear you speak, I'll climb to you, just for one heartbeat, on the inside, on the inside. And if I fall, could you soften this collide to keep my heart alive? Summit heights above this time is where we meet. Your songs become as one heartbeat on the inside, on the inside. This language speaks to me with each heartbeat. This language sings to me. On the inside, on the inside. Soften this collide to keep my heart alive.
I got to be honest with you about my thoughts on Canvas Tears, because I've described it as basically a perfect album.
That's great.
I think what I really enjoyed about Canvas Tears was that it was more musically more experimental and the lyrics became more cryptic.
Yeah.
Canvas Tears had a lot of really critical success with several reviewers, even comparing The Contact to U2, Radiohead, and Muse. But how did the album sell?
How did it sell? That's a good question. You know what? When we were in the States, we learned a little bit about how people buy albums differently down there than, especially if you're doing, shows within with any kind of church market. People don't have debit cards, at least they didn't back then. So we were used to, when we did tours in Canada, where youth and teenagers and things like that, they would buy albums with debit cards and they wouldn't have a whole lot of cash. And so we learned pretty quickly when we were down in the States that that wasn't really how it worked down there, and a lot of people didn't buy albums like that. And so album sales were pretty good, but the thing that was happening at that time too, there was a crazy change in how people even consume music, right? So digital download and was really becoming the main way that people were getting their free music. We would even have gigs where people would come up to the merch table and they would kind of look at it and they'd say, like, is this online? And they said that they were just going to download it. So, that's just the reality of how, the market has changed now, where, bands really don't sell hard copies of albums anymore. Unfortunately, I kind of miss that because I've always loved having the hard copy and the liner notes and all those things. But the industry was changing pretty rapidly at that time. So, for me to say that, we sold lots of CDs, I would be lying compared to maybe even some of the earlier, CDs like the EP and Paralyzed from the Soul Up, because, the market and the culture hadn't really changed a whole lot then when those were released. So just in the span of a few years, there was quite the change.
Well, can I make you happy and tell you that I've actually got a copy of Canvas Tears on CD?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, we were quite happy with that album, and just not only just the recording, but just the presentation of the whole thing. We were really pleased with how it came out.
Here it is, the title track from Canvas Tears.
My sleeping, is this real, or am I still dreaming? There's a war outside me, the canvas tears inside me. Inside my waking night, is there something to break the system down? There is a war outside me, the canvas tears inside me. There is a war inside me, canvas tears.
This is Geoff Fifield of The Contact, and you've got The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
We have to talk about the lead song, Black Sea from Canvas Tears. That's
Sure.
an incredible song.
Thanks.
I know that the band used the term Black Sea as a metaphor, but did living in Halifax, being on the edge of the Atlantic, did that have any influence on it?
Oh, you know what? That's maybe subconsciously when I was writing those lyrics, being exposed to the ocean air every day. I don't know. I wouldn't say that directly it had an influence on that, but maybe in the back of my mind that was a factor. But yeah, really just a metaphor you see in the lyrics of that song of sometimes as people of faith we are in dark places and it seems like we can't see ahead of us, and just a metaphor of kind of trudging through the unknown, trudging through the dark place, but being triumphant on the other side. So for a lot of just that way of speaking to the church in a way that's maybe different than what is common in terms of the idea of being opposed by the world and being kind of in opposition to, being countercultural in those types of ways. So again, a lot of those songs were very much kind of written in that idea of moving against the grain, I guess, per se, and being victorious in how we live, and using the metaphor to kind of drive that home, kind of giving it multiple layers.
Was that always who you were focusing to the Christian market, or were you trying to make it more general?
You know what? I would say it's always been kind of general. We've always, as a band, kind of seen ourselves somewhat as kind of reaching into both a Christian demographic, but also into people who are searching, who are interested in spiritual things, and so there definitely has been ways that we've written music and lyrics that is maybe not as we try to stay away from Christianese, if I can use that term, language that is completely inaccessible from the general market, but at the same time we try to write in a way that maybe the general market has to think about and they find interesting and dig deeper into, and then both the Christian market is challenged by it and thinks about it deeper too. So
one of the best songs I've ever heard, Black Sea from The Contact.
Hear the voice with our hearts, so close and so far. We will march through the ocean tide, walk as a bride. Hear this dangerous beat, bring bones to their feet. We will not fear the ocean tide, breathe in the deep. Outside, out free, marching through a black sea. We fight in one direction, inside liberty, breathing in a black sea alive. With your infection, touch lips with your cold, from the foot of your throne, it will melt through the cords we tie. We speak, here am I, send dangerous feet through the enemy sea. We will reign on the other side, we will know peace. Outside, out free, marching through a black sea. We fight in one direction, inside liberty, breathing in a black sea alive. With your infection, we will pass through alive. We will pass through alive. Hear this dangerous march, inside dangerous hearts. We will march to the other side, seek and find our love. Outside, I'm free, marching through a black sea. We fight in one direction. Inside, liberty, breathing in a black sea. Alive with your infection. Outside, I'm free, marching through a black sea. We fight in one direction. Inside, liberty, breathing in a black sea. Alive with your infection.
You did bring in a song on Canvas Tears that was established in the general market.
For sure, yeah.
You did a cover of Peter Schilling's 1982 song, Major Tom, Coming Home. But here's a simple question for you. Why?
Oh, that is a good question. It started off as a suggestion from our producer, and he thought that it would be an interesting cover. Again, there's metaphor in that could be taken it's kind of the multiple layers of kind of representing, Major Tom, but also if you think about that deeper in terms of this journey of faith and this idea of kind of leaving the temporal and entering the eternal. So it was kind of one of those things. It was somewhat experimental for us, for sure. We it was never even on our radar, and again, one of those things where we thought that it could fit. It would be kind of a connection point with maybe a more general market, in which we were up for doing. So those kind of few things transpired, and it happened. Yeah.
Well, you did a better job than Schilling did with his original anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, well, thank you. No, it was fun to do, and it was funny as after we had done that, we had noticed in the following months and next year there was a couple other bands that had done a cover of it, and who knows if they had heard ours or if they just a few different minds were thinking the same thing at the same time. I don't know, but it was kind of funny that a few different bands were doing that.
Standing there alone, the ship is waiting, all systems are go. Are you sure? Control is not convinced, but the computer has the evidence. No need to abort. The countdown starts. Watching in a trance, the crew is certain, nothing left to chance. All is working, trying to relax. Up in the capsule, send me up a drink. Jokes Major Tom. The count goes on. 4, 3, 2, 1. Earth below us, drifting, falling, floating, weightless, calling, calling home. Second stage is cut, we're now in orbit, stabilizers up, running perfect, starting to collect, requested data, what will it affect, when all is done, thanks Major Tom. Back at ground control, there is a problem, go to rockets full, non-responding, hello Major Tom, are you receiving, turn the thrusters on, we're standing by. There's no reply. 4, 3, 2, 1. Earth below us, drifting, falling, floating, weightless, calling, calling home. Across the stratosphere, a final message, give my wife my love, then nothing more. beneath the ship. The world is mourning, they don't realize he's alive. No one understands, but Major Tom sees now that life commands. This is my home, I'm coming home.
I was in touch with The Contact a couple of years ago about your new recording plans.
Yeah.
You messaged me back and said, this album will have a different sound compared to Canvas Tears, as we've been exploring different instruments and sound palettes. So what do those changes involve?
Oh, I think it's kind of, maybe as we'll get to a little bit, I think it's shying away a little bit from being as hard-driven by guitars and exploring a little bit more of different sounds with keyboards. At the same time I say that, there's songs that we've pretty much finished recording that are very heavy driven with guitars and lots of keys. I mean, that's always been our sound, but we'll see if they're released. And but I think the idea is to change it up a little bit and to experiment a little bit more with with keyboard sounds and soundscapes and tones like that. So it's hard to say. You know what I mean? Like, nothing's complete until it's finally recorded and sent away. So at this point, I can't even tell you how any other song besides that first single is going to turn out. But trying to keep things different and fresh.
So here it is. We're almost a decade after the release of Canvas Tears. What makes you want to keep going or to get back into the game with, putting out singles?
We love doing that. We love to write and record. In terms of any kind of extensive touring, I don't foresee that being a part of our future. You never know, things might change, but we're going to become potentially one of those bands that, kind of retreat to our little recording space that we have to create something, craft something, and release it, and maybe once in a while kind of make an appearance and play things live. But we're kind of coming to a point where that's just kind of how it fits our lifestyle, and we like doing that, and we have a lot of the equipment that we're able to do that now for relatively inexpensive. And that's part of the beauty of recording technology these days as well, is that you're able to make a really good product with not a lot of equipment. As a funny story, when we've been rehearsing for gigs recently, this is it. I find it funny anyways, but there's been times when I haven't been able to find a copy of my own CD or my own material, and I'll actually go on the internet to find the lyrics of the songs that someone has posted that I wrote. It's just to remember them and hear the guitar parts recorded. And, oh yeah, that's what I played. Oh yeah, that's what I sang. So that's how old some of the things are in the back caves of my mind. So.
Do
I couldn't resist playing that last song. Even though it was recorded years ago, the song title, Could This Be the End of the Hiding, totally fits with the reemergence of the Contact. Next week, I take the Antidote in a different direction when I meet with Shannon Lowe of the Order of Elijah. TOOE was a band who were bold about being Christians. And they're still bold, but their message changed when Shannon Lowe gave up his faith and announced that he's now an atheist. I had the chance to speak with Shannon about that switch, and we'll have music from both eras of the band. For this episode of The Antidote, Geoff Fifield is back with the rest of our talk about the Contact, and I've got their new single, Vanity Ball, queued up to finish this show. Enjoy this, and I'll see you again next week. What have the band members been up to since 2007?
Well, we've all gotten married and all have kids now, and besides our day jobs, we try to get together and to create something into something that we like and something that we're happy with, and then kind of chip away at it. And then, as we see in the new single, once we feel like we've got it to a place where it's like, yeah, this feels like it's right, and to put it out there. We also feel like this Vanity Ball that we've released is, even though it was written over the course of the past 9 years, essentially shortly after we finished touring with Canvas Tears, it's still relevant, and it still feels like it's modern and contemporary and not like sounding like something from 9 years ago. So we were really happy with that after we completed it.
It has to be the perfect song because it's been 9 years that you've worked on it.
Yeah, no, that's kind of embarrassing, but that's just the reality of it now. And it's gone through different variations, but actually that song, out of all the newer ones that we're working on, has probably had the least amount of changes over the course of time. So it was just kind of one of those songs that came out and was meant to be.
I'm wondering if with the song lyrics, if you weren't also speaking to yourself. One line of the lyrics from Vanity Ball includes the term, I will be restored. I mean, I think really you could use that to describe the Contact, that you're now restored as a band?
Yeah, no, I never even thought about that, but there is a little bit of that redemptive restoration kind of language in there. So, I've never really thought of it that way, but it could be, again, like all of our songs, there could be multiple layers there, and that almost subconsciously is coming out, this idea of, there's been this fairly long hiatus of the band, or at least to the public, and to putting something out there and ending it with that song, with that line is maybe quite fitting.
When I first went to get Vanity Ball off of Bandcamp, you've also indicated that, hey, some of this money could go towards recording new singles. Any more immediate plans?
Well, I don't know if it said recording but we've recorded a bunch of material already, and where we feel like we want to spend money, if people so choose to pay for the single, is to mix and to master the songs. So that's one of those things that we feel people with more skilled hands can to take the songs to a better place than us to mix it. So that's kind of what we're hoping for, is over time, to have some funds to do that, to release more songs that we've already recorded.
Geoff, this has been a real pleasure because, man, I've been wanting to talk to the Contact for a long time. Thanks for meeting with the Antidote.
Hey, no, thanks for having me. It has been a long time since we've been able to connect, so thanks again for having us and exposing the band a little bit more.
I was an army that conquered the sea. I was a cedar with roots running deep. But all things must fall, all things must fall.